The Mausoleum of the Arbiter. Once, it was one of the most sacred monuments within the holy city of Charity. Now, it is forgotten and stained with the bodies of its worshippers. Here rests the remains of all previous arbiters, the sacred warriors of the Covenant Empire, coffins layered symmetrically and anti-individualistic, irrelevant in a way, showcasing how even the grand arbiters, though respected in life, are not offered high privilege once the service to the overlords concludes. These tombs are the brickwork of an empire deception, a covenant built for all spurned towards the worship of few. The year is 2552. The covenant is dead. The once illustrious capital, the pinnacle of the religious might, is now rotting. It is infested by the greatest enemy of the gods, twisted to demonstrate an alternative fate. The flood has come to wreck it. The best way to describe the aesthetic of the mission Cortana is that of divine rot. The holy city of Charity, that once contained billions of inhabitants, is now only an amalgamation of flesh and metal. The Covenant's entire religion, based on high technology, has been desecrated by tumorous masses of biomatter. The mighty ideology is now shown to be rotting at its literal core, the flood washing up the truth that the prophets could not hide. While the flood primarily represented physical and naturalistic rot, the metaphorical rot has existed from the Covenant for almost 30 years before its fall. The Covenant need to rise and have a purpose before the narrative can knock them down. However, after the signing of the Way of the Union, the Covenant was formed with the main goal of finding and worshipping the leftover artifacts of their gods that they put their faith into. It could be said that this tendency to worship the past foreshadows the Covenant's grim future, a society that can only ever adore regression. It's a society that sustains self-progress. Rot is functionally inevitable. The Covenant spent centuries conquering and assimilating hundreds of species and thousands of worlds, all in the name of their ultimate goal, titled The Great Journey. By activating the Halo superweapons, the Covenant thought they would achieve salvation for all, believing the sheer power of the rings would destroy their mortal forms and guide their souls to a state akin to godhood. The prophets essentially were of the persuasion that their gods, those forerunners, had already used the rings to ascend past physical reality. But in reality, those gods have already been consumed by the unending decay of the flood. While one can make the argument that activating the rings is holy, because it has a chance to erase the flood from the universe, for our purposes, it's more salient to view the Covenant's relationship to the rings as a dogmatic one, with those rings representing a purely materialistic capability of overwhelming violence. This view would give justification for why the Covenant has been slowing both socially and technologically. With faith constructed around a device that destroys the future, how could those who worship it ever look beyond the light of annihilation? To make matters worse, the Covenant's view of religion was shaken by the contact of humanity. The prophets soon realized that humans were the true inheritors of their gods, and that humanity was literally chosen by the gods themselves to be reclaimers of what remains of the Forerunner Ecumene. The Covenant's rot was always in a way inborn, but now it manifests. The prophets, unwilling to admit fault, had to contain their empire together. Instead of offering cooperation of humanity, they declared war. In this action led to 27 years of conflict, culminating with the release of the flood and the decimation of the prophets' dreams of galactic domination. As this dream had become the true goal of the prophets, especially in the latter years of the war, the fact that their once ironclad faith, that they consumed in order to continue on, had returned to swallow the newborn wish whole is a perfect irony. Built on a shaky foundation, there was nothing that could have truly saved the Covenant. No arbiter, no shipmaster, no weapon of mass destruction. With the realization that humanity were the chosen ones, not them, the prophets and the whole Covenant itself were forced to reckon with truth. From this, an understanding of the ring's real purpose came to form. The prophets' goal shifted in those final days. Their mission was the extermination of all except their own species and a select few others. Those that remain become kings of the ashes that remain, inheritors of a new galactic order. This was the point where the prophets had fully shunned the original purpose of the covenant. The instrument of their ascensions remained the same, however. What was once a promise of paradise had turned into the tool that would wipe away all life and the galaxy. In turn, this makes the religion that the covenant was built upon irrelevant. All that mattered in the end was control and loyalty. Hence the changing of the guard from the elites to the brutes, the attempted execution of the Arbiter, and the failed attempt of the activation of the sacred rings on the Ark, the final resting place of the Covenant Empire. Floating here, the destroyed capital now remains, crashed and set to be entombed on the foreign installation, wilting from the flood infection. High Charity, on the day of its dying, held billions of people, still clutching onto their broken religion, their devotion that became more physical than spiritual. Once used as the fuel for an authoritarian regime, their final forms were the literal walls and floors of the holy city. These structures contained the mutilated flesh of grunt workers and broken bones of devoted honor guards, all meshed together to a new hive of unity. The Covenant's first purpose was realized, in a way akin to mockery. This mission is disgusting. The entire scene, decomposing and pulsating, is terrific in both senses of the word. But so too it is beautiful in a unique way. Similar to new life emerging from the decaying remains of a once beautiful plant, there is power within the flood that is undeniable. The flood preys upon an incarnation that left scenes of pastoral and ancient nature. If one could ignore the gurgles of pus and the shattering of forms, the flood almost appears like Eden, returning to reclaim a decadent city that has forgotten its roots. This is a trick, however, and the entity that contorts the flood may as well be the serpent who guides mankind to ruin. The corridors are lined with skulls, and the ground is piled with corpses intended to be used up and feasted on at a later time. All these design elements foreshadow and reveal the character of the Hive Lord known as the Grave Mind, the only real godlike being that has taken root within this fallen city. Its countenance is mythological, yet graded. A Mother Nature figure without the caring qualities, an illustrious serpent who decries higher purpose by using the vernacular of a scholar to prop itself up, a demiurge. For like the demiurge, the Gravemind spawned from a greater god as the last remnant of the precursors. Could it not be said that the Gravemind was the figure the Covenant was trying to summon? Those prophets who deigned to understand the full scope of the faith were unable to see the curse present in its conception, the Gravemind. In this way, appears as vengeance, highlighting the folly of the Covenant by giving them exactly what they claimed to have wanted for so long. Therefore, the Gravemind, and thus the flood itself, have melded with High Charity, becoming one with it. The entire metropolis is now the flood, the citizens now part of the tools they once used. They are the doors that keep more flesh that allow access further and further to its collection of biomass. In this, they have truly become paragons of their faith. They have become the path that they themselves wish to walk. These rooms are murals, a lattice of flesh, tendrils and gasping arms reach from wall to wall, tentacles groping from the ceiling like saliva, flood-infused bubbles pulsating with growing infection from inside them, ready to burst. This world is a living ecosystem made of creatures both dead and alien to us, a disgusting piece of art, purposely made to be efficient in its chaos, a perfect hide made of the sole purpose of growth. The entire city now a living chorus, begging the viewer to join in. It is, from its own perspective, a sort of holiness. This is where the Master Chief comes in. Sent by his lonesome to rescue Cortana and secure the activation index to end the flood threat once and for all. Unfortunately, she too was held within this ever-growing palace of a billion corpses, and the dead are hungry. This now putrescent mass of grinding metal and flesh is one of the Chief's greatest challenges. The mushroom-shaped High Charity, now true to its form, has become a symbol of decomposition. The so human is now surrounded on all sides by the enemies of his past and the rapidly approaching future. It's just him and his shotgun, speed and mass against the howling chasm of aggression. It's one of the bleakest scenes Halo has ever graced us with. Traveling with no ally left to guide him, assaulted by the thoughts of slowly corrupting Cortana and the dominant aggressive Gravemind, the mind of the Master Chief must seem as hellish as the land he now walks. The infection is indiscriminate, now taking hold of John's faithful companion, just as it has taken the holy city. While the Gravemind speaks with the words of the poet, it abhors any self-expression that is beyond it. There is no spirit that the flood will break, no hope they will not consume, and no higher power they will not assimilate. The Gravemind cares not about Cortana, about the will she has gained, and the purpose she possesses. All the multitudes of the world are just different flavors to the wretched mass. While Cortana's corruption gives the player a personal stake in the narrative, it only seems human to want to tear the Gravemind asunder. Perhaps that is what it wants. These areas of the now hollowed city bring a mix of sadness and beauty, a certain melancholy that only scenes of apocalypse can give rise to. This place, one of the most religious sites within the entire galaxy, has gone empty. There is no sense of individuality or self within. The sunlight, often a symbol of a higher power, an uplifting power, can only barely fill these halls and chambers, becoming less and less prominent as one descends deeper into the hive. The darkness keeps growing and growing, as the divine hand of the gods finally let go of this sacred home. This room holds the last piece of light, the final prey before darkness and corruption. This is the last vision of natural light the player will see. The only luminescence from this section onwards flares out from the decaying hulks of biomass and the broken Covenant fixtures. They indicate to the player the worst is coming, yet you must press on regardless. In the deepest parts of the city, all things are meshed together. No loose corpses remain here. Everything is becoming subsumed into a singular entity. In the darkness, all things look the same, smudging together, unidentified. One of the final rooms, Cortana sits, abandoned, illuminating the space with a soft blue essence, the last light, the only sign of hope, uniqueness left within the Gravemind's grip. Yet she too is losing.
Out of place. You might be too late.
The Gravemind has already been allowing his mass of opulence slip. But here, the beast fully tears it off and roars at Master Chief. The greed of the Covenant's unity, now the endless gluttony of the Gravemind, will not allow even one morsel to slip from his grasp. The Master Chief may not be stronger, but his will make him difficult prey for the Flood. Keeping the promise he made to Cortana nested with him, he is able to rescue his lost ally, convening the last truly living thing within High Charity, and escape, detonating what remains of the fallen High City as they leave together. It may be a small comfort to some of the Covenant that the City of Charity ends with one last act of love. Two people grasping out to embrace one another. The Flood, though unbelievably powerful and near omnipresent, cannot know that feeling. When the Gravemind reaches out, it only wishes to find itself. Like the Covenant ended, the Flood is unable to see beyond itself. To it, The sky is only a cage, the stars are just food. There is a great sense of tragedy as High Charity takes its last inhale. In that exhale, the explosion, the imperfect activation of the insulation brings an end to the corruption of the Great Mind. The rot of two religions finally buried deep, the surface of the city cleansed in a manner ironically similar to those of the glassy beams the Covenant once wielded. The flood slumbers now, and the great journey has met its close. The Covenant had the unity, and they got their peace. But that rotten core is still buried. Even in its weakness, it remains almost unstoppable. It is the inescapable entropy of our universe. It is the howling beneath the first ape and the last man. It is an enforcer who tests all ideology and condemns every monument. It is contemptible. It is cruel. It cannot be washed away, but it is survivable. As long as there are two concepts, two objects, two people, there will come the thought of unity. What would the world look like together? However, unity is only valuable when it pushes forward. Always look towards the past, like the great mind, and you will decay till all things look the same. Only care about the present, not the profits. And you will cast those who should be your sight on you, irrevocably serving your purpose as its beginning. The only unity that can be had under the light of the halo is one that gazes towards the future, that craves through the rot and makes an attempt, however small, at thriving. At Charity's fall was a tragedy. With the flooding conditions one thing, is that there are certain parts of our reality that will never end. There are still members of the Broken Covenant fighting on, and there will always be someone holding the line against the world. And one day, some fool will reawaken the hungering titan, and the cycle will renew. This lesson will never conclude. It must be relearned. Take heart, though, because sometimes when you stand still and take in the environment of our charity, you may notice it. Those decaying arms that cannot grasp anyone, yet try to clutch. Those newborn beasts who search for anything apart from themselves. The hollow fate that drives people together. Yes, our charity looks a lot like you. I wonder what your light looks like.
If you made it to the end, I really appreciate it. This video is gonna probably be one of my favorites. I love the flood and being able to talk about it on Halloween as well is really cool. This script was not done by me. It was done by my friend Nick, so huge thanks to him. He did phenomenal work on this video. The script here is it's really good. But yeah, if you made it to the end, thank you. Like, subscribe if you wanna share it. I'd appreciate it. But thanks. See you next time.